No, not yet. Not yet. You may be able to say that when all is said and done. Let's see how it all shakes out. There's still positions to be filled. And in terms of the hierarchy of available quarterbacks, he hasn't been at the top of the list yet. Kaepernick is no longer considered potentially a great player. In fact, he's no longer really considered a good player. He's considered maybe a competent enough quarterback with upside. That's it. So, and who you have to run a specific kind of offense for. So if all the slots are filled and Kaepernick is not offered a job anywhere, then you can say that teams are consciously avoiding him. And I also think it's fair to assume that considering, and listen, I supported largely his protest. I didn't support the Castro shirt, but I did support the protest. And, but it's obvious, it's not my opinion or anyone else's opinion, it's clear that it became a major media issue and therefore would be said to be a distraction. And we all know how the NFL works. If your production doesn't make the distraction worth it, teams will look the other way, but we're not even there yet. Let's see when all the situation is completely sorted out whether or not Kaepernick is still looking for a job. If at that point he's still looking for a job, then I think we can say the answer is yes, because he's better than some of those other available quarterbacks.
Yeah, he hasn't been blackballed. This isn't fishy. It isn't skullduggery. It's simple math. Colin Kaepernick right now is failing a very simple math equation. Your talent must be greater than the problems you present. And right now, Colin Kaepernick is not satisfying that mathematics equation. The problems he presents are quite obvious. The national anthem protest was offensive to many. It may not be to you, it may not be to some of your friends, it may not be to many watching, but to many, it was offensive. So for any team that wants to sign Colin Kaepernick, they're taking that on as part of their brand, the potential for Colin Kaepernick to affect their brand. At this point, I also want to say, because I've been very critical of Colin Kaepernick, I should acknowledge the good work he is doing as well. It's come out this past weekend. He's helping contribute to sending food and water to Somalia. He's helped Turkish Airlines get an airplane to do so. So it's not really about whether or not Colin Kaepernick is a bad guy or a good guy. Colin Kaepernick simply right now is offensive to many people because of his protest. We can debate whether or not that's right or wrong, but it simply is. On the other side of the equation, his QBR was 23rd. I think Football Outsiders has him at 30th ranked quarterback, which puts him in the range either way with Brock Osweiler. And that means you're signing up for a guy that simply isn't very good, and yet you're getting his problems to go along with it. This isn't difficult. It's not conspiracy. It's easy as on paper to see.
It's easy, but it could also be exactly what Spike Lee said. What I would say in response to Spike Lee is, so what? Get over it. And it's just that simple to me. The fact of the matter is this. Colin Kaepernick is 3-16 in the last 2 years as a starting quarterback. 2-6 in 2015, 1-10 last year. He was 8-8 in his last year with Jim Harbaugh, which means that the last 3 years he has been mediocre to bad to even worse than bad.
So how is Scott Spike Lee right
Well,
then?
what happened? Well, he's right in this regard. If it hadn't been for the whole drama issue with the kneeling during the national anthem, chances are he would have gotten a look, he would have gotten a call by now. So I don't think there's any question in my mind that there are people that are saying we don't want to deal with this problem. My response is, you kind of knew that when you took the position that you took. You knew that you were going to alienate at least half of our society by doing so. You accepted it. I respect that. I don't respect how he then piggybacked off of that and announced to the world that I don't vote. So the number one instrument of change available to the American citizen is something you chose not to exercise. Then you come back and you say, well, I'm going to stand for the national anthem moving forward, and I'm not taking away the good deeds that he's on the record for having done. I can appreciate that. But you put others in a position where they could make the argument, you're just doing this because you're trying to get a job. You've allowed other folks to be in position to question your authenticity because of the hypocrisy that you exercise by displaying that your unwillingness to vote. So when you take all of those things into consideration, it's now a scenario where if you're an NFL team, I got to ask myself, you might have potential because even though you can't throw that damn well, completing only 59% of your passes the last 2 years, you can run with with the football, you can make plays. So I know that you can do things on this NFL level potentially. However, does that outweigh the distraction that you inevitably will be? And most teams at this point are saying no, and damn it, I can't knock them for it.
I think the math is I understand the equation here, but I think the math is a little bit more complicated than just is the talent, does it outweigh the distraction? Does the upside of his play maybe outweigh the bad side of his branding? Will, as you put it. I think that the complication arises here. Is the branding and the downside you see to the branding, because there may be some upside too, is that and the media distraction, does that outweigh the difference between Colin Kaepernick and the next guy who might man the position if you don't get Colin Kaepernick? Does he offer you a premium next to that guy? Because Kaepernick is not only, I thought he was okay this year when on the field. I thought he was okay. And it's not just that he was okay. Yeah. I'd say about 30 is right replacement value at quarterback, but he has upside. How many of the other quarterbacks who you could say they're okay about replacement value have the kind of upside where we've seen them lead a team to the Super Bowl and come one play away from leading a team to back-to-back Super Bowl appearances? We've seen that from Kaepernick. We know that upside is in there somewhere.
Here's the math before I want you to jump in, Will, for me. If all things are equal, here's where he's blackballed. The team is not going to take him based on the distractions. But it's only if all things are equal. When I look at guys like Geno getting a look from the Giants, now, granted, the math could be very different, but you can't tell me that Kaepernick's not a better player than Geno Smith.
Well, but Max reduced the equation on the problem side to his protest, but it's not simply just about his protest. There's also these problems. What did he just opt out of? Something like a $14-15 million contract? Mm-hmm. So now you're getting the 23rd ranked quarterback in QBR who's expecting to get paid like that. You know what Geno got? Geno got like $7 million guaranteed. Matt Castle got like $1 or $2 million guaranteed. We're now comparing Colin Kaepernick against guys who are getting a fraction of what Kaepernick is costing. So the equation now is this.
Backups.
You get the 23rd ranked quarterback in QBR, who, by the way, you entirely overrate his upside. You entirely overrate his potential.
Seen it.
He's 29, Max. He's 29.
Yeah,
How many guys
he doesn't have to get better than he's ever been.
30 years old?
He doesn't have to get better than he's ever been. He just has to be as good as he once was. We've seen it.
He's got to be much better than he's been over the last 2 or 3 years. He's got to be like 2012. You're right. He's got to rewind the clock 3 or 4 years.
He's not 39. He's 29.
And then, to even it out, he needs to get paid like Geno and Matt Castle and these guys. But right now, you've got a quarterback who's bringing a tarnished brand that offends many people, who expects to get highly paid at a 29-year-old level as a 23rd ranked QBR.
Look at Mike
isn't
Glennon.
skullduggery. This is obvious.
Look at what Glennon just got. That is a kind of low-tier starter, a guy who's trying to establish himself as a starter.
That's not the point.
That is the price point for a Colin Kaepernick, not a backup quarterback.
Please.
You're naming backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, because he'd be lucky to be a backup quarterback. And not only that, Molly, to close this out, your last point. Geno is going to a place in the New York Giants where he may not even play because Eli Manning hasn't missed a start in 12 years, okay? So if you're Colin Kaepernick, even if you want to go someplace, okay, you might not play either. But why bring that distraction to the team? For what?
You want to take a vote of NFL GMs on who has more of that mysterious upside and potential between Geno and Colin Kaepernick? I'd be really interested in the results on that, Max. I might suggest you Geno's hanging on to more potential and upside than Kaepernick at this point.
That one I
wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
Geno's younger.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't give a damn. I wouldn't go that far.
We can't debate Geno and Cap, even though it'd be riveting. All right, now that we've heard from the guys, where